Hello and welcome to Chapter 8 material on minerals and water. This section, I'll be going over water and giving a brief overview of the minerals. First, I'd like to look at water or fluids that are input into the body and where we obtain our water. Now, you would think we'd get most of our water from liquids, and at times we can get most of our water from liquids. But look at the composition of water we get from foods. Again, this is completely dependent on the type of food that you eat. For example, if you're eating a lot of packaged, processed, refined grains, really dry foods, breads, bagels, cereals, then you're probably not obtaining a lot of water. If you're eating more fresh fruits and vegetables, then you're probably obtaining more water with your food. And then a very small component is water created by metabolism. Essentially, that just means that every chemical reaction that happens in the body, most of them end up producing water. So as a result of those reactions, there's water generated. Now, what about water going out of the body? And this can be during physical activity such as soccer, or if you're just out sitting at a hot day, maybe you're sweating and losing water through your skin. But also just in general, if you're sitting at your computer right now, where do we lose our water? Well, I think one obvious area is through the kidneys. This goes into the urine, and this is going to be excreted from the body. The skin through sweating, the lungs. And what I'd like you to do is put your hand over your mouth and then breathe. You'll actually feel a little bit of moisture on your hand. So every time you're breathing out, you're losing just a little bit of water, because water is also excreted through the lungs. And then, of course, in feces. Now, water has many functions in the body. And some of these functions include regulating temperature, moistening tissues such as your mucosal membranes. You think of your lips, inside your mouth. It helps with the kidneys and the liver to flush out any waste products. It helps protect the organs. They usually sit in an area that's surrounded by water or a fluid, or think of the joints in your body, lubricating the joints. So you have your bone, cartilage, there's usually some joint fluid, and then that allows to protect those joints. It helps dissolve minerals transported in the bloodstream. I mean, what is your blood? Your blood is actually mostly water-based, and then carries nutrients and oxygens to all the cells all over the body. Now, how much water do you need? Well, men need about 13 cups per day and women about 9 cups of water a day. And you hear about that 8x8 recommendation, 8 cups of 8 ounces of water. That's actually a fantastic way to remember how much water to drink. Usually you want to drink a little bit more. But it also depends on how much you're obtaining from food. If you have foods that are generally more water dense, you probably don't need to drink as much water throughout the day. And it doesn't have to be water. It can be any sort of fluid, as long as it's not a sugar-sweetened drink or beverage, or artificially sweetened beverage. Remember, we want to stay away from sugar-sweetened, artificially sweetened beverages, but maybe you have coffee in the morning, or you have tea, or you have milk. All of those are beverages that are going to count as fluid intake. It doesn't have to actually be water. Now, I want to just mention a little bit about bottled water, because this has just exploded, and actually it was the mid-2000s when it was really popular. Sales have actually gone down a little bit, and the latest statistics I have are from 2011. $11 billion in sales for bottled water. Now that's a lot of money, but it's not actually safer than tap water. Now there may be some regions where the tap water is not ideal to drink. I did my undergraduate degree at UC Davis, and the water there is absolutely horrible. It comes out brown. It was horrible to drink. You kind of had to drink your bottled water, but I live now in Tahoe, and the Tahoe tap water is absolutely fantastic. So it's going to depend by region. for the most part, it's going to be just as good, just as safe as tap water, and also it's not healthier than tap water, so bottled water is not healthier. Now, the National Resources Defense Council did a study, and they looked at 1,000 bottles of water, and they were 100 different, multiple different brands, and they looked for different contaminants from bacteria to toxins or chemicals that were above the acceptable range, and they found that 1/3 of bottled water is contaminated. Now, if you are someone who regularly drinks bottled water, my recommendation is that you do your research on your water. Make sure that it has been tested by an independent laboratory so that you know it's safe. I'm just going to briefly go over these and then we'll move on to the next video. The minerals are basically elements. They don't break down to anything smaller. You remember, vitamins are organic. It means that they're carbon containing. They have carbon, they have hydrogen, they have oxygen. They're large molecules. Well, these are just very basic elements. And there are major minerals, which means our bodies need more of them. And then there are trace minerals, which means they're just as important, but we just need less of them. Calcium, chloride, magnesium, phosphorus, potassium, sodium, and sulfate are going to be our major minerals. We're going to discuss all of these except for sulfate. And then the trace minerals, iodine, iron, zinc, selenium, fluoride, chromium, copper, manganese, and we're going to discuss most of these. The chromium, copper, and manganese, your book does touch on these, but I'm not going to really talk about these in the video. So that's it for water and our overview of minerals.